so you decided they got you, why play around, they've got your phone records with Mr. Baker, you're gonna tell them the truth, right?
Yes.
But one thing you didn't know if they had was any evidence tying you to Miss Sementilli.
I figured they probably combined everything. I just didn't tell them everything until I got an attorney present to advise me on the proper way to proceed.
Well, you asked for an attorney while you were up in Vancouver, didn't you?
I did.
There's a site here where it says, you're talking to the Perkins guy.
Objection is hearsay.
I haven't really heard the question. Were you going to bring in a statement?
Statement of Mr. Austin.
Can we approach him?
All right.
So when you were up in Vancouver, at one point, you said, I told him I have to get a different attorney. Remember that?
I remember saying that in the form of a question.
Okay. And you talked to an attorney up there, right, about extradition?
Yes, sir.
Objection vague as the time.
So ruled.
Okay. So my question to you is, they told you that they wanted to talk to you then, up in Vancouver, if you were willing to talk to them. And that's Ms. Stagel, Detective Byers, Detective Farrell. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
So you had a choice. Either talk to them or not talk to them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you had already been talking to the Perkins individual and saying all sorts of things about what you did and so forth, and what you should do and whether you should get the bitch and talk about Monica and all that. You already had those conversations with the Perkins individual, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you didn't know the Perkins individual was working for the police and was going to tell them everything you said.
No, sir, I did not.
You didn't know that that was all tape recorded, so they would end up knowing everything you said and we'd end up knowing it. You didn't know that either.
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. But you thought you had a choice, your own choice, whether to speak to the detectives and the DA, Ms. Stagel, or not. Right?
Yes.
And I read you a lot of quotes yesterday where you basically were saying, both to the Perkins guy and to the DAs, I got to get back and see my daughter. I got to get home and see my wife. That's the only way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to talk to you, right?
Yes, sir.
You even said, tell me what you need. Right?
Yes, sir.
What did you mean by tell me what you need?
I don't know how else to say it. Like, tell me what you need. You need me to stand on one foot? I'll stand on one foot.
Okay. Well, they didn't want you to stand on one foot, but they wanted you to give them evidence against Miss Sementilli, right?
They wanted to know the truth of what happened.
Okay. And did you tell them the whole truth as to what happened?
Not when I was in Washington.
Okay. But you did tell them about what you did and how you killed Fabio Sementilli, correct?
I did tell them my participation.
And you told them about Mr. Baker's participation, correct?
Yes, sir.
He got you into it, right?
Via defendant, yes.
Via the defendant.
Yes.
The defendant asked you to kill Fabio Sementilli?
Through Baker, yes.
That's what Baker told you, you say, right?
Yes.
And you told that to the police.
Yes.
You told the police and the detective up in Vancouver that Miss Sementilli was involved?
I don't think I told them that until I got here.
Okay. So that's my question. You asked them what they needed, right?
Yes, sir.
And you knew they needed Miss Sementilli. They, you know, the bitch is the only one they don't got. She's going to trial. Baker's already been convicted, blah, 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 right?
Based on what the information they presented to me,
So you
Yep.
knew the only one they did not have any evidence against was Monica Sementilli. You knew-
I did not know that.
Assumes facts, not an evidence.
Sustained.
I was unaware of.
Well, then you tell me, when you talked to them up in Vancouver, you told them that you killed Fabio Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you did that because Mr. Baker asked you to do it, correct?
Yes.
You told them that Mr. Birdsong was involved, correct?
Yes.
But the whole time up in Vancouver, you never told them that Monica Sementilli told Mr. Baker to do it or had met with Mr. Baker or had anything to do with it. Isn't that right?
Yes.
In fact, you told them that you didn't even know you were gonna kill him. The first thing you learned when you landed in LA was we're just gonna rough him up a little bit.
Yes.
That was a lie.
Yes, it was.
Well, why did you tell them you were just gonna rough him up a little bit and then tell them that you stabbed him in the neck?
Have you ever been pulled over with six people on your way to work, and then two detectives come talk to you?
I'm trying to remember. No, sir, I have not. But I'm just
Okay.
asking about what
So-
happened to you, and I'm talking about up in Seattle not being pulled over on the way to work. In Seattle, or Vancouver, I'm sorry, you had several detectives. These two gentlemen here, correct? Bias and Farrell.
Yes.
They didn't mistreat you, did they?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, you were there.
No.
They didn't drag you out of a car or anything.
No, they did not.
Miss Stagel didn't drag you out of a car or anything.
No, she did not.
Okay, they had you in a room, right?
Yes.
And they made it clear all they wanted was the truth, and they made it clear they needed evidence against Miss Sementilli. Right?
They didn't mention that. They said, we know what happened. We want to know what happened in between.
And when they said, we know what happened, you assumed they knew everything about the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
Including the involvement you're saying now and yesterday of Miss Sementilli.
Yes, sir.
So all you were doing up there was confirming to them what you thought they already knew.
Yes, sir.
And you did confirm to them what you thought they already knew, right?
Yes, sir.
You told them about flying down, correct?
Yes, sir.
First you lied and said it was for roughing up, but then you changed that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told him it was a plan to kill him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the plan was with Baker and Birdsong, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you went out and you bought, first you said one knife, then you said two knives. Did they buy one knife or two knives?
It's getting
Okay.
to it.
And you told them everything about the murder, including your guilt in first-degree murder by stabbing him in the neck, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you left one thing out with them.
I left a lot of things out with them.
You tell me what you left out with them.
I left out the day I landed. I left out.
I'm sorry, who, what?
I left out the day I landed. I left out
The
what
day
the plan.
you landed, you left out? You didn't tell them you flew down and then you went to the house and Baker told you that he was just gonna rough him up? You told him that.
Yes, I did.
You told him that Baker paid for the ticket, correct?
I did.
You told him you were coming down the day before for your birthday?
After.
What'd you leave out that was important?
I left out the night that we got there, that he was supposed to go to the store and get some food.
Okay,
I left out.
hold on 1 second, please. Glad you brought that up. When you were talking to the detectives up there and even to the Perkins guy, did you ever mention that what you're saying now, that the night before you went out there with Baker to try to kill him?
No, I did not.
And why not?
Again, I didn't have an attorney present to advise me on proper counsel.
Okay, and then when you got an attorney down here in Los Angeles, then you told him for the first time that you had been brought out there the night before, right?
I told him the second time he met with me, everything.
The second time he met with you. You didn't tell him the first time.
Not in like complete full detail.
Did you lie to him the first time?
Didn't tell him anything the first time, so I didn't lie to him.
Well, eventually you ended up telling the prosecution exactly what they wanted to hear. Isn't that true?
The truth?
You told them that for the first time up here that Monica Sementilli was involved some way in the murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you had only met her at the gym and at the LA Fitness, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you had never spoken to her other than to say hello, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you were never looking at the phone or any text messages when Mr. Baker was talking, correct?
How do you mean?
You never saw him talk to Monica Sementilli where you heard her voice or you saw text messages.
That is correct.
So what you told them was that Mr. Baker had gone into another room, sometimes was talking and came out and said to you, she wants him dead. She's giving me information. She's telling me what she wants. That's what you told them
That's what I told him.
for the first time.
Yes, sir.
That you had never told him in Vancouver to the Perkins guy or to the officers there.
That is correct.
And the reason you told him that was if you did not tell him that, and you knew this, you were not going to get a deal. Isn't that right?
No, that is not right.
Well, you hadn't gotten a deal yet before you brought in Miss Sementilli, had you?
No, I did not.
It was only after you mentioned Miss Sementilli that the district attorney's office said, we'll get back to you. And then a few days or whatever, they came back to you through your attorney, and then they made you this offer.
Wasn't a guarantee that I was going to get one at all.
No, it wasn't a guarantee. It depended on what you said, right?
Yes.
And you knew at that time, whether it was from your attorney or anywhere else, you knew you had to tell them that Monica Sementilli was involved in some way in order for you to get your deal. Isn't that right?
I knew I had to tell them the truth, sir.
Okay. And you're saying that's the truth now.
That is the truth.
And you, for the first time, said that you went out the night before to kill Fabio, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, why didn't you tell them that in Vancouver or to the Perkins guy? Didn't involve her.
I did not have an attorney present to tell them everything.
So you told them that you stabbed him and you killed him, but you didn't tell them you went out the night before and did nothing.
That is correct.
Why would you leave that out?
I did not have an attorney present for proper counsel.
Did you have an attorney present up there when you confessed to first-degree murder?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
And a legal conclusion.
That's sustained.
Did you have an attorney up there when you confessed to stabbing Fabio Sementilli in the neck and killing him?
No, I did not.
Why did you tell him that without an attorney?
All the years I spent working with high-risk youth, I always told them, I was like, I can't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And they got to stand in it. And so that is what I did. I stood in what I did. And I let the chips fall wherever they may.
You told the truth.
I told a partial truth.
Well, you didn't have an attorney with you, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Yes, it is going over.
So you told them a partial truth, which was you committed murder by stabbing somebody in the neck, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
I'll allow this question.
Yes.
And the partial you left out was any evidence involving Monica Sementilli, isn't that
Objection
right?
asked and answered.
Cumulative. Sustained.
Okay. The whole time you were up in Vancouver without an attorney, and you're saying you told them the partial truth. In other words, you left out Miss Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you only, and Baker told you you were only going up there to rough him up. And he told you that the day you landed at the airport and drove over to the Sementilli house, correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
It's overruled.
Can you ask that again, please?
You landed in Los Angeles the day before the murder, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Baker at some point drove you up to the house where Mr. Sementilli, you were told, was home alone, correct?
Objection vague as to time.
Overruled.
When I landed,
Was it that day or the next day?
it was the next day.
Okay. Between the time you landed and the next day, did he change anything about you were going to kill Mr. Sementilli?
Objection vague.
Overruled.
What do you mean?
The next day, did you go to the house with him
I did.
and you put you in the trunk and you had knives and all of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And why did you go there that night, as far as you knew, that day?
Objection cumulative.
I'll allow this.
With all the detail that I knew already, Baker said, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Trust me. Just go with me, and I'll take care of everything.
Okay.
So I went with him.
But you left something out, what Baker told you, didn't you?
I left a lot out what Baker told me. Baker also told me not to mention her.
Okay, not to mention her, right? But he also told you that you were just going up there with him to rough him up because she'd been mistreated by her husband, correct?
He told me that that he was abusive.
He was abusive and you were going there to rough him up. That's what you told the detectives up in Vancouver, and you told the Perkins guy, correct?
That is correct.
Was that the truth?
No, it was not.
Why did you lie about that?
Because I did not have an attorney present to give me proper counsel. And I
But-
didn't know them to tell him anything in a cell.
And then you went on and told them that you stabbed him in the neck.
After I talked to the detectives.
Did you change it and tell them it wasn't just to rough him up, it was to kill him?
I remember telling him it was to rough him up, yes.
Well, how did it get
Okay.
from roughing him up to killing him? Did he resist in any way?
Who?
Mr. Sementilli?
A
Do you
little.
think-
I think a little, yeah.
Well, how did he
But Baker started stabbing him already, so.
defend himself? You remember?
I remember he was sitting in a chair.
Okay. And?
Baker had already covered his mouth and pinned him down to the chair.
He had what?
Baker had already covered his mouth and pinned him to the chair, and I had already covered his eyes, and Baker had started stabbing, so he didn't have a chance to really defend himself. It
So-
happened really fast.
1, 2, 3, boom, you got in there, right? He wanted it fast, Baker.
Yes,
And 1, 2, 3, you got into the Porsche, right?
about that, yeah. It was quick. It was really fast.
Really fast. But it wasn't roughing him up, it was killing him.
Yes, sir.
So my only question to you is, if you admitted killing him, why did you tell the officers and the district attorney in Vancouver that Baker told you the day you landed that you were only there to rough him up?
Because I did not have an attorney present to advise me proper counsel on what to say. I knew they knew something, but I gave them partial truth
You didn't have a proper counsel to tell you what to say.
to advise me.
And eventually, you found out what to say when you came to Los Angeles, didn't you?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
And
Wow.
eventually, you came to Los Angeles, you got your attorney, and then you added that Monica Sementilli knew all about this because that's what Baker told you.
My attorney talked to me with his with a partner and said, "You cannot BS me. You need to tell me everything."
Okay.
And I asked and confirmed, like, "So are you my actual attorney?"
Why'd
Are
you
you
want to
sure?
know if he was your...
Objection, can you finish this?
You may finish your statement, sir.
I wanted to know. I asked him to confirm, "Are you my actual attorney, or am I going to get a new one?" Because I had met a different attorney prior, so I didn't know who to tell anything. He said, "I am assigned to you. You are my attorney," and I started telling him everything.
And what was the purpose of your talking to the police and to the DA here in Los Angeles at all? You'd already confessed to them in Vancouver, right?
My attorney advised me what a proffer meeting was, and he told me I cannot hold back anything.
And you had already said to the Perkins guy and to the DA up north, in Vancouver, "I'll give them whatever they want. What do you need? What do you need?" Remember saying that?
I do.
Was that the truth? You would give them whatever they wanted so you could go see your wife and kid again?
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew the proffer was your chance to tell them what they needed so you could get your deal. Isn't that right?
How do you mean?
I mean, you didn't have a deal. They didn't say we're gonna give you a deal if you just tell us what you told us in Vancouver, where you confessed to the murder.
No.
You knew what the deal had to be is you had to give them Monica Sementilli. Isn't that right?
I was advised to tell them the whole truth. Don't hold anything back.
And you were told that if you didn't add Monica Sementilli to what you told them, there would be no deal. Isn't that right?
That is not what I was told.
Well, that's the only thing you changed, right?
That's what I added.
That's what you added. So why didn't you just say, hey, it's what I told you up in Seattle. We went there, we were gonna rough him up, got out of hand, I killed him, I stabbed him, that was the end of it. Why didn't you just say that?
Objection cumulative.
It is, as well as argumentative.
All right. Mr. Austin, let
Yes,
me
sir.
go back to a few things that shed some light on this, I believe. When you spoke to the district attorney up here in Los Angeles, at one point, you were asked, might there have been other people on these calls when you guys were having these conversations 4 to 5 months before the murder? Remember being asked that by Ms. Silverman?
Yes, sir.
So she was asking you if someone else besides Baker and Birdsong were in on the calls, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said, possibly, I did. Remember?
Yes, sir.
So when she asked you if there are other people on these calls, you said, possibly.
Yes, sir.
You didn't say Miss Sementilli was on the call then, did you?
No, I did not.
And then the question was, I'm sorry, you did what? And your answer was, more, dash, dash. I did a lot of tuning out. What'd you mean by that, a lot of tuning out?
When they started talking, I was either cleaning, watching TV, walking around.
So you were basically saying when they were asking you who else was on these calls, you were basically saying, I don't know, I was tuning out, right?
When I was asked were there other people on the calls, and I said possibly, that was the truth. It could have been more people on the call. I wouldn't have known if they don't say anything.
And Ms. Stagel said, yeah, and then Ms. Silverman said, that's not gonna fly. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, what do you think she meant when she said, that's not gonna fly?
Objection speculation.
Sustained.
Well, you took that to mean you better remember more than just I kind of tuned out.
Objection argument.
Sustained.
And after you were told that's not gonna fly, then you started telling him that Monica Sementilli was in on the calls because that's what Baker told you, right?
Yes.
Before then, you hadn't told him that, had you?
I hadn't told them much of anything.
Well, you started off with you didn't remember much because you were tuning out. And then you changed that to Monica Sementilli. Remember that? I'll move on, Your Honor. Now, at some point, you were also advised by the prosecution after you made some statement not involving Ms. Sementilli. Ms. Stagel said, I don't disbelieve you. I don't think anyone does. There's just, there's a lot of factors. We're set to go to trial, and it's Monica. And it's like we're putting it all together, and there's, you added some information that we may know, but we didn't know for sure, so it's I see the value that you've added. Let me put it that way.
Objections is hearsay.
Explains the witness's subsequent conduct. It's overruled.
You've added value to the case as an overall and putting the case, as far as the whole picture. So you've been cooperative. You've added value. That goes a long way. Again, not a promise, but it means something. Every case I've done, the detectives have done is different. Every single one is different. There is when you say, what have you seen? Well, I haven't seen what. How you portrayed right now and the remorse you've shown. I haven't seen that a lot, but again, every single case is different. And you've helped us to define more or less, your thoughts, your role, so we can see where you're coming from. So we're just trying to get the truth in what happened. And you said, I'm telling you the truth. And she said, no, I believe you. I believe you. You remember being told that?
Yes, sir.
And because we know we've got one other person to try, and that's Monica, we know there wouldn't be you without Monica. What did you think that meant? There wouldn't be you without Monica.
I let her finish her statement.
Pardon?
I let her finish her statement.
All right, so we believe that you got bought into this. We do believe you. I think everyone believes that this isn't what you intended, long time before, if that's what you're saying. But at some point, you got brought into the loop. I think we just need an understanding and the truth and what you've already told the detectives about your role. Remember that?
Yes.
But what you had told the detectives about your role already didn't involve Miss Sementilli, right?
No.
It did not, correct?
What I told the detectives, I didn't tell them everything.
And after talking to the prosecutors here, you decided, for whatever reason, if you didn't add Miss Sementilli, you were not going to get your deal.
I decided to tell them the truth of what I knew.
But you knew if you did not add Miss Sementilli, there was no deal. You knew that, didn't you? Yes or no?
I decided to tell them the truth of what I knew.
After you had not told the truth any time before.
I hadn't told anybody before.
Do you recall being asked a question during this proffer? Now at that moment, this is page 90, now at that moment, did you know that she was in Las Vegas at the same time? This is talking about going to Las Vegas in July of 2016.
Counsel, is this the first day or the second day?
Proffer 1,
What page?
90.
What line?
I don't have the line on this printout. Sorry.
One second. It's this. Okay, page 90.
Should be.
Okay, that's not page 90.
Do we have pro showing?
All right.
This is the one Mr. Bob Mr. Austin, I'm trying to get to the point where you start telling them that Ms. Sementilli was involved. Okay?
Okay.
In the beginning of your proffer with the detectives, and there was 2 days of a proffer, right?
Yes, sir.
You broke for 1 day and then you came back the next day, correct?
A couple days after.
And you didn't from the beginning start telling them Monica Sementilli was involved. You didn't say that till later on in the proffer, isn't that true? After you talked to your attorney some more?
I believe so.
You believe
Every
I'm sorry.
everything that I told him came from Baker via Monica from his cell phone. Everything that I was told, he didn't move until he got a text message. So when he got a text message about the killing of Mr. Fabio, everything he did after he got a text message, which told me that he was talking to her via text message. I did not hear him talk to her on the phone. I did not talk to her on the phone. But everything that happened in sequence was after he talked to her. I got pulled in because I don't know why I got pulled in, but I got pulled in. Like a dummy, I went with him. He told me, I won't let anything happen to you. You're not from here. No one's looking for you. And that's what I've been told.
Well, he was wrong, right? Something did happen to you.
Very much so.
Right. You got arrested. Right?
I got arrested?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And you were interviewed several times before the proffer, correct?
We're covering the same ground, counsel. Let's move on.
I'm trying to find out when it was that you switched your testimony to what you're saying now, which is what you said yesterday.
Didn't
from the
switch my
time-
testimony, didn't tell them anything until I talked to my attorney and he told me, you cannot BS, you have to tell them everything. So, you're asking me to remember something from 8 years ago. I barely remember what I ate for breakfast 2 weeks ago. With that being said, I did the best of my ability to recount from 2016 in July when I went to Vegas to have a good time, so I thought. And then conversation came up. And when conversation came up, I knew too much. He had told me that before, in the past. When you know too much, you can't say anything. So I didn't say anything. I did everything that Baker asked me to do.
Okay. But you didn't tell everybody what you're telling us now.
No, I did not.
And here on page 90, you're asked a question during the proffer in Vegas about Monica. Now, at that moment, did you know that she was in Vegas at the same time? No. That
No, I
whole
didn't.
trip then, did you find out she was in Vegas at some point? No, I don't think. I don't really remember that piece. That was at the proffer with your lawyer.
Yes, sir.
Was that the truth? You didn't see her? You didn't talk to her? You didn't know who she was?
Objection, compound, argumentative.
Sustain on the first ground.
Did you tell them when they asked, did you know that she was in Vegas at the same time? Did you say no?
I said no. I
Is
did
that
not
the
know.
truth?
That's the truth.
She wasn't in Vegas.
I don't think so, but I might have met her there.
Next question. That whole trip, did you find out she was in Vegas at some point? Answer, no, I don't think. I don't really remember that piece. Was that the truth?
That's the truth.
Well, haven't you told us now that she was in Vegas and that's when you started planning?
I
Objection
told-
states the testimony.
Sustain.
Okay.
What I said.
Here's another quote from the proffer. Question. Page 51.
1 second, what line?
I don't have the line. It's on page 51.
Well, hold on then, please.
Certainly.
I'll have to search for it.
Certainly. numbers on the side where the lines. It's line 8 to 20 to 20. It's been a while, Your Honor. Mr. Austin,
Yes, sir.
this was a question of yours. At the proffer, with your lawyer, when you knew you had to tell the truth, right?
Yes, sir.
Question, was there anybody else in these conversations 4 to 5 months before the murder involving how to do it, causing harm to Monica's husband besides you, Robert Baker, and Al Birdsong? Answer, I don't know. I don't remember other than us, 3. Other than us. Question, 3? Answer, other than us 3, I think. Question, you think? Answer, like who else? Like you're asking me who else? Question, was on the calls. I honestly don't remember. I'm not trying to lie to you. Was that the truth?
Yes, sir.
So you didn't know who was on the calls?
No, sir, I did not.
You didn't know Monica Sementilli was on the calls?
I did not know if she was or not.
Didn't you tell us in court just now and yesterday that Baker told you she was on the calls?
Objection states testimony.
It's overruled.
I don't know if I recall that.
Didn't you just say that?
I don't know if I recall it. She might have said possibly. I didn't hear her voice.
But here you said the only one on the calls was the 3 of you.
That I heard, yes.
Well, how did you know that she was involved then?
Objection vague.
Overruled.
How did you know that she was involved then?
As Baker told me, she wanted him dead.
Let's go to the proffer, page 54, lines 12 to 28. You knew the proffer was being recorded, correct?
I was informed.
One moment. Page 50,
4,
12 to 28.
yes.
I don't think that's right. Page 182.
Page 64, I'm sorry.
From the first day or the second day, counsel?
Proffer 1, first day. Sorry, Mr. Birdsong. Page
His
60.
name is not Mr.
I'm sorry,
Counsel.
Mr. Austin. I double apologize.
No worries.
Okay, here's the questions and answers by you. My question to you is, did you and Baker,
One moment.
my question to you is, did you and Baker discuss the fact that Monica wanted her husband dead prior to the time that you came to L.A.? Answer, yes. What did Baker tell you about that? Answer, he told me from what I can recall, well, she doesn't like him. She's gonna come into some money. Question, she's gonna come into some money? Question, what does that mean? Answer, I'm assuming if he dies, she is gonna get some money for it. Is that what Baker said? Yes. Question, if her husband dies, she'll come into money? Yes. Okay, so that was part of the conversation with Birdsong? Was that also part of the conversation with Birdsong? Remember that?
Yes, sir, I do.
So, He didn't tell you anything about insurance money, did he?
Objection Vegas at time,
Overruled.
and Vegas to who?
Overruled.
Not until after.
Not till after what?
After he passed away.
After you killed him, he told you then it was gonna be insurance money.
Yeah.
But here you said, I'm assuming if she dies, she's gonna get some money for it. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
So you were never told you were gonna get money from anything. You were assuming when she dies, you'll get it, correct?
That was my recollection at the time. They asked me to go backwards. So I went backwards to that train of thought.
Do you
Not what I
remember?
know today.
Do you remember saying, I'm assuming they were gonna try to pay me, but they didn't say the amount?
Yes.
Baker said he's going to get her to give me some money for
Can
victim's
counsel
wife.
page, lines, each date.
Page one, offer one, page 68. May I proceed? You said, I'm assuming they were going to try to pay me, but they didn't say the amount. Baker said he's going to get her to give me some money. I'll get Monica to get you some money. You trusted Baker. Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
So nothing about getting insurance money again. Before the murder.
No, sir.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Austin. You were asked a question on page 73, line 6. If you can, and when you say he, like, let us know who, because now we are kind of diverted a little bit. Can he tell us, if you're okay with it, Beth, just kind of like he picked you, what the conversation was? Like, just tell us straight through. And then she can go back and, like, ask you some specifics. She meant Miss Silverman, right?
Yes, sir.
They were both there. And you know what we're looking for is like, and you say, I know, you know what we're looking for is like, who's talking to who? How do you know? And you answer, I want to make sure I get what you're asking. Question, I know. Answer 4. Mr. Aval, your lawyer, says truthfully. You say truthfully. Ms. Stagel says right, and you say, I don't want to. Oh yeah, that happened. And then you say yes, and I just say yeah. Ms. Stagel, yeah, right, we want to know why, specifics. And you say, I don't want to do that. Why'd you say that?
Because I was trying to remember what they were, when they asked me the question, I was trying to remember everything that took place. The pause makes it seem like I'm making things up when I'm actually just trying to remember and give them the. Yeah.
Going on, question, if you could do it in your words, just kind of walk us through when he picked you up maybe, and then we can go back so that from your words, you can kind of tell us, and you know what we're asking you is the conversation about the planning and who was involved in it and how you knew things. And you said, I knew things mostly from Baker. Question, okay, and if you just go through it then, question by Ms. Silverman. So you also said Birdsong was on the phone and giving, and you say Bird, I did, but in that sense, that was more coaching, because again, I was on a need to know. So when they talked about it, question, what do you mean by a need to know? Question, there are only-
Objection, there's no question pending.
Yeah, this is only too far afield. Ask your question, counsel.
Didn't you say they're only telling me parts like I've never talked to Monica other than meeting her, I'm cool, this is what I do? Did you say that?
Yes.
And when you met her, I was just being myself and pleasant, I don't know what's going on at this time. Right?
Yes.
That's what you want to know, you said, right?
That's what I said.
So the truth is, you never spoke to Monica or saw her, and Mr. Baker never told you anything that she said. Isn't that true?
A little compound, like to break it up.
Truth is, you never spoke to Monica about this case at any time, either on the phone, in person, or anywhere else.
That is correct.
And the only thing that you added when you moved up here was that Mr. Baker told you this, right?
Can you ask me that again, please?
Let me move on. I think we've gone through that. When you got to town, you went back to Baker's house, is that correct?
Objection, Vegas is time.
The morning of the murder, when you came,
Very well.
the morning before the murder, when you first flew in, who picked you up?
Baker.
Where'd he take you?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustain.
To his apartment.
I'm sorry, sir, when I say sustain, it means you don't answer.
Thank you, sir.
And from the apartment, then you went to the store?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustained.
Well, when did you go to the store to buy the knife?
Objection, cumulative.
This all allow.
Sometime maybe after 12
Where'd you go?
to a Walmart, I believe.
Baker already had one knife, is that right?
Objection, cumulative.
That be sustained.
The knife that was bought at Walmart, you were asked. But the knife that was bought at Walmart with you present, you used for the murder, is what kind of knife?
Objection, no question pending.
Remember your answer?
Very well.
Are you asking what knife was bought at Walmart?
Yeah,
Counsel, page, line, please.
page 76,
Lines.
offer one.
Question was, you remember your answer? You remember your answer?
Yes, pocket knife.
A pocket knife,
Pocket folding knife.
pocket folding knife. And then you were shown a knife, is that right?
I was.
And you said that's the one? And the question was, is this the knife you bought with you? And you said, I think so.
Yes, sir.
Is that the right answer? I think so.
Yes, sir.
That you wouldn't call this folding knife, you call it a hunting knife.
Excuse me?
You called it a hunting knife, didn't you?
I called it a what?
Hunting knife.
No, I did not. That was a folding knife.
That was a mistake? You only bought one knife with them, or did you buy more than one? Remember that question?
I believe,
It's cumulative.
This is absolutely proper, it's overruled.
Remember?
yes.
And then you said, I think there were two knives. You bought two knives that night? I think so, yes. What was the other knife? That was a hunting knife, right?
Yes.
So first you thought he bought one knife, then you thought he bought two knives. Right?
That's what I thought, yes.
So what's the answer, the correct answer, if you know?
The correct answer is there were two knives during this situation.
I understand that, but my question is, how many knives did Mr. Baker buy the night of the murder? Or the day before the murder?
Two? Maybe he had one at the house?
So there were three knives total?
Pause.
Is that right?
Where did you hear that?
I'm asking you. He had
No.
one at the house, right?
He might have had the one at the house. He might have bought two at Walmart. That's a long time ago. I don't remember really. I know we went to Walmart to purchase a knife or two.
A knife or two.
There were two knives.
And you know which one of them you used?
Yes.
Which one?
I think I had like the hunting style.
Hunting style?
I think so.
Is that the knife you threw away?
Yes.
Did you see what happened with Mr. Baker's knife?
No.
Did you ever see that knife again that day?
No.
Did you ask him what'd you do with your knife?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you ask him what he did with his knife?
No, I did not.
He said you both took off all your clothes, right, and threw them in a dumpster?
Yes.
So were you naked?
No.
Well, what clothes did you throw off? Take off?
The clothes that you seen in the picture that we jogged up in.
What were you wearing underneath?
I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
Mr. Baker?
Maybe the same.
You're not sure?
He put my head down in between my legs, told me not to look up while he was driving. Both times.
When you got to the, well, what car did Mr. Baker pick you up in?
Which time?
At the airport, when you came down there?
I think the rental.
What if I told you the rental wasn't rented until the day of the murder?
That's not it.
So by the rental, you mean the Versa Nissan, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's your memory that he picked you up at the airport the day before in the Versa Nissan.
Yes, sir.
And then he took you where?
To his apartment.
And that's when you went to the Walmart, bought the knife?
Objection cumulative.
Sustained.
And then that night you said that something happened at a parking lot, is that right?
The night I was picked up,
Yeah.
nothing happened in a parking lot.
Nothing happened that night in a strip mall?
No.
You didn't go out to kill Mr. Baker? I mean, Mr. Would have been nice. If you killed Mr. Sementilli?
It was arranged via text message that he was going to be sent to the store to get something.
So you did go out that night to kill Mr. Sementilli.
Thought the question was, did something happen?
Well, isn't trying to murder someone happen?
Objection
No.
argumentative.
Sustained.
So he took you out there, is that right?
Yes.
Now you understand that these phones sometimes can be electronically traced to where you are at a certain time. Did you know that?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
You know, these ping towers and so forth.
Yes, sir.
It's one of the reasons you didn't want to carry a phone with you that night?
I was instructed not to.
Okay, but Mr. Baker carried his phone.
Yes.
And you arrived at the, what do you call it, the location?
I don't.
No, you call it a strip mall or a, what do you call it?
It was the back of a strip mall.
Okay. And you said in one of your interviews that there was a Ralph's Market there. Remember that?
Yes.
And you're sure of that, to the best of your memory?
At the time? Yes.
Yeah, a Ralph's Market there at the time.
That's what I said.
On what street?
I have no clue.
You know how you got there?
Got where? To the Ralphs?
Yes.
Baker drove.
And you say you showed on a map that he parked on the other side of the parking lot. There was a long parking lot, correct?
That was not a Ralphs behind that parking lot.
There wasn't a Ralph's in that parking lot?
It was behind the strip mall.
The Ralph's was behind the strip mall? I'll slow down. Where was the Ralph's?
I don't know. I was wrong
Do we have a,
about that.
there's a photograph or two, Your Honor, that was marked in evidence. I wonder if I could, use those. Assistant 249. All right, Mr. Birdsong, this is 249 page, this is 249 page 1. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
You say you were standing by the UPS store?
Yes, sir.
What does this circle mean?
That's where the victim was parked.
And this is another photograph, you see that?
Yes, sir.
Number 2. This is number 3 is a wider photograph of the strip mall. Can you show us the route you took to get from where Mr. Baker parked?
Not from this picture.
I'm told there's a better picture of this. Mr. Babbage is correct. This is always number 4 of the exhibit 249. You recognize this location?
Yes, sir.
Can you show us where Mr. Baker parked with the pointer? No, I'm sorry.
No, I cannot.
Which side of this? It was in the back, correct?
Yes, sir.
Where was the Ralph?
There is no Ralphs.
I thought you said the strip mall had a Ralph.
I said I thought it was a Ralphs at first.
Didn't you also, in your statement to the district attorney and the police, say that Baker said that she was sending him to a grocery store?
From what I could remember at that time, that's what I was trying to do, remember exactly where.
And you said a grocery store,
Yes,
and you said a Ralph.
I did.
You were wrong about both.
Yes.
Can you show me, tell me when to stop? This is the back of the, that's the strip mall. This is the strip mall, that's the UPS store. You see that?
Yes, sir.
So did Baker park somewhere behind this row of buildings?
Yes, sir.
On this side or this side?
Can you go down or go back? Go all the way. Go back toward the cars. Can you go back toward the cars?
This way?
Yes, sir. Keep going. Stop right there. Go down. Right. I think that's a dumpster.
Is this green little circle, you see that?
I think that's where he parked, but he let me out by a dumpster.
Where's the dumpster?
Go down. No.
That's not, that's,
I think there was a dumpster somewhere in that corner.
Well, you got it right, four directions, that's the left. So he went away from the strip mall?
He let me out by a dumpster and then parked in a parking space where the green mark is.
Okay, and then where did you go?
I walked there, and then there's an alleyway through there, and I just walked through the pillars.
Well, there's a little alleyway or path that goes right from here to the mall, isn't there?
I don't know if that's an opening.
So you walked all the way around here,
Yes,
and then Mr. Sementilli parked here where the circle is?
one of those parking spaces.
Okay. And did you see him as you were walking?
Well, when I walked along the way, I looked into the shop and saw he was in there purchasing food.
You looked into the pho
Yes, sir.
and you saw him purchasing food.
Yes, sir.
You were out there with your knife.
I was out there with a knife. Yes.
Same knife you used in the murder the next day?
Yes.
So where'd you wait for him? Come out of the store.
I was by the UPS store when he came out.
So you walked all the way down to the UPS store close to the Ventura Boulevard?
Yes,
Why'd you do that?
because he was in the store buying food.
Well, but the restaurant's right here and you parked right there, correct?
Somewhere over there, yes.
Well, why'd you walk all the way down to the UPS store?
Because he was in the restaurant buying food.
And you thought that was the best place for you to wait for him?
Didn't wait. I walked down, then walked back.
So you walked down and walked back, what was he doing?
Once he came out of the store, he got into his truck and drove off.
And then what did you do?
I walked back to the car.
Was the parking lot crowded or
I don't remember it being very crowded.
what time of day or night did you recall it being?
Maybe it was late, maybe around like between 8 or 9.
8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Between that, yeah.
You sure?
I'm guessing.
Well, I don't want you to guess.
It was dark outside in January. If I remember correctly. It gets dark in California maybe around 5:30 or so in January.
Right, but you said about 8 or 9.
Yeah,
So how long did you wait there?
did not very long.
So you got there about 8 or 9.
Mm,
What'd you say?
no.
How long did you wait?
Wait in the car, wait outside. There
Well,
wasn't a
it
whole lot of
didn't-
waiting.
It didn't take long to get to the mall, and it's you said it was an L-shaped mall, is that correct?
That is the strip mall.
No, but you said it was an L-shaped mall. It's really a U-shaped mall, isn't it?
Oh, I remember the L shape, but it looks like a U
Describe
from
what you
overhead.
mean by an L shape.
The letter L.
I know, but that's what you said, so show me on the photograph what you saw that caused you to believe it was an L-shaped mall.
A little difficult for me to do that, sir.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Is an L like this where I'm moving it?
Yeah, that's the same way a knight moves on the chessboard.
So what about the other side of the mall?
What about it?
It's a U-shaped mall, isn't it, as you look at it?
Yes, sir.
So is there a reason you thought it was an L-shaped mall?
Because I remember the path that I walked was an L.
Path from here to here to here to here to here.
Yes, sir.
You sure this is the mall you went to?
Yes, sir.
So you come back and you say, I'm not gonna do it, right?
Yes, sir. Say I couldn't do it.
And you were ready to go home then, right?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you go home?
And my flight wasn't scheduled to leave until 2 days later.
Well, you ended up changing your flight.
I did.
So you knew you could change your flight.
Yes.
My question is, you said you didn't want to kill him that night. Why'd you kill him the next day?
I didn't think it was going to happen the next day. I thought it was over.
Did you discuss that with Mr. Baker?
No, I did not.
You didn't say anything to him like, I can't do this, I'm not gonna do this.
I didn't say, I don't remember saying that. I remember saying I couldn't do it. He said, don't worry about it. I was like, cool.
Don't worry about meaning you're
And
not
my
gonna
thought
have to
process
do
at
it.
that time, was cool. We're not gonna do anything. Tomorrow we're gonna wake up, maybe hit the gym, go get some food, just hang out.
Where was the knife? What'd you do with the knife?
I gave it back to him.
So you didn't have a knife, you didn't want to do it, you got up in the morning. Why didn't you just leave?
He was my ride.
You needed a ride.
Well, my flight wasn't scheduled to leave until the next day, so I had no intention of changing my flight like that.
Mr. Baker
Once it
went
was
to the
done.
gym, is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Is that what he told you?
Yes.
What did you do?
I stayed in the room and watched TV.
Did you have any money or credit cards with you?
I might have had my debit card with me.
Okay. Was there anything to prevent you from just calling an Uber or a cab and just going to the airport and flying home?
My bank account?
You didn't have enough money to get to the airport?
I'm sorry, what?
You didn't have enough money or a credit card to get to the airport?
Not at that time, no.
But you said when you went to the airport the next day, you used your credit card to pay the Alaska Airlines.
Yeah, I probably had like a few dollars on it, but not to catch a cab to the airport. Then if I would have caught a cab to the airport, I wouldn't have changed my flight.
Were you penniless at that time, Mr. Austin?
Excuse me?
Were you penniless at that time? Did you have no money?
I had a little dollars.
That you came down there without any credit cards or any cash to use in case you wanted to buy something or do something or leave or whatever?
I mean, I might have had my debit card on me, or maybe some cash.
So why didn't you use that to just go to the airport and leave?
You're asking me why I didn't spend money to go to the airport and spend more money?
Whatever it took to get to the airport, change your flight, go home so you didn't have to kill someone.
I didn't have that kind of money on me to do that.
Did you ask Mr. Baker to take you to the airport?
He was my ride.
Yeah, did you?
Take our morning recess for 15 minutes. The evidence applies. See you back here in 15 minutes. All counsel are present, jury and also present. Mr. Austin, you're still under oath. Defense may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Austin,
Yes, sir.
let me bring you back just briefly to the actual murder of Fabio Sementilli. You jog up the street with Mr. Baker and you go in the front door. Do you immediately go in the front door after you finish jogging up the street?
Are you asking me to walk you through the entire route?
No, I'm asking you, when you got to the top of the hill, did you go right to the front door?
Up through the driveway and in through the front door.
Okay. What I'm saying is, there was no looking around or waiting for anything. You had to get in and out as quick as possible, was your idea of the plan, correct?
Yes, sir.
From Mr. Baker.
Yes, sir.
You keep your hoodie on, your disguise on, correct?
Yes, sir.
How are you able to see through that?
Barely.
Okay. So, who opens the door?
Mr. Baker.
You go right in and you head right to the kitchen, correct?
Through the hallway, through the kitchen, yes.
Okay. Through the hallway, through the kitchen, knowing, according to Mr. Baker, he's gonna be out on the patio, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had seen the patio when you were there, what was it, a couple of years before? When were you there? At the house?
A few months prior.
A few months prior? You were just there, you saw them, you got on the couch, watched TV, and fell asleep, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you get to the kitchen, there's something I thought I read where it was 1, 2, 3, go. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Who said that?
Baker.
And what did that mean to you?
1, 2, 3, go means 1, 2, out on 3, we go.
And after the 1, 2, 3, did you go with him right out the door to the patio?
Yes, sir, I did.
And then you've described to us that you and Mr. Baker killed him.
Yes, sir.
How long would you guess, not guess, how long would you estimate, since you were there, you were out in the patio murdering Fabio Sementilli?
I wasn't out there long.
Long enough to hold him down, stab him 3 or 4 times, and run out, correct?
I stabbed him once.
Oh, I bet Mr. Baker stabbed him a few times, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is he wearing a watch? If you remember.
Maybe. Yes.
Was there any attempt to get the watch off him? Make it look like a robbery, burglary?
Again, my eyes were closed, so I would say, yeah, by the time I opened it, he was fumbling with his wrist and walked back into the house.
So you were the first one to stab him?
No.
Well, your eyes were open when you stabbed him, correct?
Yes.
Let me withdraw that. You knew where you were stabbing him, in the neck, correct?
I just went for the neck like he told me to.
I'm sorry?
I went for the neck like he told me to.
He told you to stab him in the neck.
Yes, sir.
He had been in the army, you knew that.
Yes, sir.
Did you know he was stabbing him where there were certain arteries or veins that would bleed quickly if he was stabbed there?
No, sir.
So you stab, he stabs, and then where do you go?
Once I see him go into the house, I go into the house as well. Make a
what?
right by the island, make a left into the garage and get into the car and wait.
So you didn't hang around in the kitchen or the patio or anywhere. You went right to the car after the murder.
Yes, sir.
And which way was it facing? Was it facing out to the street or facing into the garage?
Tail lights toward the kitchen, tail lights toward the back door. It was backed in
It was backed in,
to the garage. Headlights facing the
so you could
out.
drive right out.
Yes, sir.
You sure of that?
Yes, sir.
So it's backed in and you get into the passenger seat or the back seat?
The passenger seat.
And that's the one facing farthest from the kitchen.
The car was backed in. I hopped in the passenger seat.
The front seat was closest to the kitchen door. Isn't
The
that right?
passenger seat, yes.
Which one, the passenger or the front?
The passenger front seat.
I'm sorry, passenger front seat, okay. So, you're sitting there and you said you heard Mr. Baker doing something?
Prior to going to the garage, I heard Mr. Baker doing something.
Prior to going into the garage? I thought you said you heard something after you got in the car.
When he came out with a bunch of stuff.
Okay, so how long was he gone?
Maybe 5 minutes,
Couldn't have been too long, right?
long enough.
Well, did you know what he was doing?
No, not at the time.
You were sitting in the passenger seat of the car, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were the doors closed?
Yes, sir.
Were the windows closed?
No.
Okay. And between you and the house was the garage, and then what? The kitchen came when you went in, entered through the garage?
I
Or-
entered from the patio,
Patio,
into the
kitchen,
kitchen.
and then you-
Herm Rugman.
I'm sorry. Go on. Patio, kitchen.
Heard rummaging, kept
But-
going
but
to the
you-
garage like I was instructed to do.
Okay, so you were instructed to stay in the car,
Yes,
and you did.
yes.
Now, you said you heard rummaging. Now, I want you to describe what you could hear from the car in the passenger seat through the garage, kitchen, patio, and so forth in the two-story house. What did you hear?
I heard from the kitchen as I was going into the garage rummaging. Once I got to the garage, I sat there and I waited. Didn't hear much until he started coming downstairs.
Did you see any rummaging when you were going into the garage?
No, sir.
Did you see where he was going?
No, sir.
Was he bleeding?
Didn't look.
Did you see any blood on him at all?
Wasn't paying attention.
Well, what about when he got in the car and started driving? Did you see blood on his hand, blood on his shoes, blood on his pants?
He put my head down in between my legs and told me to get down.
So my question, your answer is no.
Yes.
And you're saying he was gone about 2 to 5 minutes? Say 2 minutes yesterday, 5 minutes today?
In between 2 to 5 minutes.
And then you saw him, you didn't see where he went in the house,
No, sir.
but you just heard rummaging.
Before I got to the garage,
What kind of rummaging? Like what?
like things opening, like a drawer,
You heard a drawer from where you were.
briefly.
Okay.
That's what it sounded like.
Did he tell you why he wasn't taking you with you to make it look more rummaging and do it quicker?
No, sir.
So you just followed his instructions, right?
Yes, sir.
Throughout this whole terrible event, you just followed his instructions, correct?
Yes, sir.
So he comes back with what?
A pillowcase with stuff in it.
So you run up to the house, go into the patio and kill him, and he goes and leaves about 2 to 5 minutes. The whole time you were in the house couldn't have been more than 10 minutes, right?
If you include the garage, yeah, maybe about that.
Maybe even less if you don't include the garage, right?
Sure.
I mean, wasn't that the idea, to get in and out as quickly as possible?
Yes, sir.
Didn't he say something about a daughter, or his wife was gonna, Fabio's wife was gonna show up or something?
If I recall correctly, he said, shit, his daughter, I think his daughter, I
Well-
think that's his daughter.
I think what?
I believe that's what he said.
When?
When he was driving out.
When he was driving out, he says, I think that's his daughter.
Yes.
Because there was a car driving up.
Yes.
Did you see that car?
No.
But before you got to the house, didn't he say something about hurrying up because someone might be coming home? I thought you tried to say it was Monica or her daughter. You tell me.
Yes, that's what he said.
What did he say?
He said somebody might be coming home.
Somebody might be coming home. And when did he say that?
On the way up, I believe.
On the way up the street that you're jogging, he said, we better hurry up because someone might be coming home.
He didn't say those words.
Well, something to that effect?
It's just something to that effect, yes.
And that's why you did it so fast.
That's why I went with him.
Pardon?
He told me to go with him, so
All
that's
right.
what he said.
And then you did it the way you just described.
Yes, sir.
At any time, did you see Fabio on the phone before he was stabbed by you and Mr. Baker?
No. He might have been smoking a cigar.
Okay. But I mean, was he on the phone taking a call, or did the phone ring, or did you see him on his computer or anything like that?
No.
Did he look like he was asleep when you killed him?
No.
Did you see a computer there?
No.
So he didn't move at all from where he was lying or sitting in that chair from the time you got out there, 1, 2, 3, until he was knifed to death. He didn't really move or anything. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Austin, I just want to go back one more time to the transcript of the proffer 1, page 107. Someone brings up a plan. Question is, was it Baker or Birdsong? And you say I believe they were kind of working together. You meant Baker and Birdsong, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's okay, and you say like they were both former government. So again, question, well, I hope government people don't plan to. And you say they were talking among each other on how to do it. What did you think you meant by, what did you mean by how to do it?
How to cause harm to someone.
How to do the murder? Or did you know even then they were talking about a murder?
I saw them go into a room after our conversation.
And when was this and where, if you remember?
I think we were in Vegas.
The one where you said you never saw Monica, right?
Yes, sir.
You never saw her, did you?
I don't recall seeing her.
Okay. And then the question is, by Ms. Silverman, in front of you, that is talking among themselves, and you say, yeah, I remember, yeah, and question, like what? And you say, he could probably do it. He's fast enough. I'm like fast enough. Like, what do you mean? And they started, Miss Stagel says, were they talking about how to do it? And you say, how to do it. So you believe they were talking about how to do what?
Cause harm to a family.
Cause harm to somebody.
Yes, sir.
But you didn't know who then?
No, sir.
Question, like how did they say, let's talk first weapons. Were they talking how, whether it would be shooting, knife, and you said shoot. And then it was question, beat up, and you said first talk about like beat up. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Saying that? So they were talking about beating him up, right?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what you told the people in Vancouver and the Perkins person and the DA and Miss Stagel. That Baker told you the day you arrived, we're just gonna rough him up, right?
Yes, sir.
So they were talking about it back then, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you say, and then they like maybe you could sneak in while he's sleeping. Did they say that?
It was discussed.
Who was saying that? Do you recall, Baker or Birdsong?
Baker.
Maybe you could sneak in while he's sleeping. And who was referring to, if you know, as you could sneak in? Did you know?
The victim.
Huh?
The victim.
No, but who was going to sneak in? It said,
He
you
wanted
said
me
you
to-
heard
He wanted me to do it.
you. Okay, so they were talking about you sneaking in, and then the answer is Monica can leave, you can tie him up and do it then. Remember that?
Yes.
Question, at this point, did it sound like, from what they were saying, that Monica was in on this as well? Remember that question?
Yes.
And you said it seemed that way, yes. Question, why? Answer, just because it was like how, not how the conversation is, just how they were going, like Baker was on his phone a lot. Question, okay, could you hear him talking to someone or just texting? Answer, no, he was texting. Question, and did you think he was texting Monica or the woman at this point? And you said, I think so. So you didn't know if he was texting Monica or not, did you?
Not entirely.
Well, you said, I think so. You didn't know, right?
Right.
And the question, but I guess the question is why. That is why you thought he was texting Monica or a woman at this point. And you say, but I don't, what do you mean? Question, this is from the DA. Like, why do you think she was in on it and he was maybe communicating with her? And your answer is probably because they were messing with each other. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
So you thought it was Monica he was talking about because he had told you at the gym that he was messing with her, right?
He was messing with her prior.
That was some time before, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't know if he was still even messing with her, did you?
Didn't really cross my mind to be diving into his relations.
So, but you knew on one time he had introduced you to her and as someone you thought he was messing with.
Yes.
What does messing with mean?
Having relations.
Okay. And that's why you thought they were talking about him because they were messing with each other.
Yes.
Question, well, was he like responding to text and saying, oh, and you can do this, or he won't be home at this time? Did he seem like as if he was referencing his phone while he was talking? Answer, the day of, I can. Okay, there. If you're going, we'll get there. Okay, so where are you? You say still in Vegas. I don't know about that piece. Question, answer, but it just, question, okay, answer. They were talking about it. It seemed like they would be, okay, they say.
There's no question pending.
Counsel, you're reading the entire transcript and not asking.
No,
me.
no, it's almost done.
Well,
That doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. Just get to your question.
Okay, but the last thing you say, that would be, she would be the person why of feeding the information. Okay,
Same objection.
Not to this last,
and
Same objection.
wait a second.
there's one more question by Ms. Silverman, which is relevant to this.
Very well, get to it.
And when you first met Monica in Vegas during the 2016 visit at the Aria, was there conversation in front of her between you and Baker about getting rid of her husband? Answer, no. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
Is that the truth?
Yes, sir.
So there was no conversation in Vegas about getting rid of her husband with Monica that you were a part of or you heard about?
Not in front of me.
Mr. Austin, we talked yesterday about how you felt about doing what you did, and we went through all that. And you felt terrible about it, right?
Yes, sir.
But not terrible enough to call the authorities and tell them what had happened or who had done it, even if you were gonna commit suicide. You didn't do that.
We've been through this, counsel.
Move on.
What happened with the 6 gold coins?
I cashed them out.
How long after the murder did you cash them?
Maybe February.
So the murder was January, end of January, and you cashed them within a week or two? Is that right?
Maybe 2-3 weeks.
And where did you cash them?
In Alaska.
But how did you cash them?
I gave them to a person who dealt with gold, and they told me what they were.
You gave them to a person who dealt with gold?
Yes, sir.
It was something you did often?
No.
How'd you find someone who dealt with gold?
I was in the mall.
And you just
And
put
then-
up a sign, deal with gold, see me?
Well,
Objection, argument.
Sustain.
How did you find the person?
I believe at the time in the mall there was a trade your jewelry in, trade gold jewelry in for gold.
So within a week or two of murdering Fabio Sementilli, you went in and traded that gold for money, correct?
No.
You didn't cash it in for money?
You said within a week or two. It was a little longer than that.
Well, you tell me, how long?
About almost a month.
Almost a month. You take the gold, cash it in for money, and then what did you do with the money?
Paid off some debts.
Didn't you consider that blood money?
Objection, argument.
Sustain.
I have nothing further.
Anything to redirect?
Yes. Mr. Austin, we are going to back up to the day that you were arrested in Vancouver. That morning, when you were arrested, you were taken to the police department, and that's the first time that you had any contact with law enforcement regarding what had occurred on January 23rd, 2017 with the killing of Fabio, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you went to this police station, just to go through the sequence of events, you were arrested by officers and then you were transported to Vancouver Police Department, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were put in the cell with the undercover agent, it's been referred to as a Perkins agent, but do you know the term Perkins?
No, sir.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
well, thank you. The term Perkins then, it was an undercover agent that you thought was a cellmate, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified to, in the beginning, you were uncomfortable. Now, is that correct with this talking?
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding that undercover agent, you actually did discuss the defendant with that undercover agent in certain respects, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you recall, you were put in the cell and then the Detective Farrell came in. Do you remember him coming to you and telling you basically, we know you were there, we just want to know what happened in between. We know you were there, we know how you left, we want to know what happened in between. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then when Mr. Farrell left, you were left alone with your cellmate, who you believe to be another inmate with you in custody, I should call it.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So you brought up, and this is for reference, the Perkins transcript, page 106 for counsel. You actually did bring up, and that's line 4 through 7, you did bring up the defendant, the female, And it was sparked because you knew that there was a lady involved. Farrell had told you that those were arrested, right? So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
Baker and a female. The word lady was used, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, your cellmate,
Objection, that assumes facts not in evidence, Your Honor.
So rule.
at that point, your cellmate, the undercover agent, said, and the bitch, who they got. Did you ever meet that bitch? And you said, seen her, but I don't know her. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the topic of Monica, or the defendant, I should say, was brought up by the cellmate, and you admitted that you.
That misstates the evidence. Monica was not brought up.
She indicated that. So rule.
Not the specific name, Mr. Austin, but the female, and you knew who it was in reference to, the defendant. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was brought up, and you said, but I don't know her. Correct?
Yes.
Defense asked you a lot of questions about that statement about you don't know her. Today, do you know her?
No.
And when you say, I don't know her, what does that mean?
Favorite color, cereal, what you like to watch, what do you like to do for hobbies, birthday, what type of things do you like to shop for, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what are your coping skills.
So to this day, when you say, I don't know her, she was never a friend of yours, right?
Yes.
But you knew who she was.
Yes.
So were you ever denying that you knew who this defendant was?
No.
You just don't know her personally. You didn't have a personal relationship with the defendant of any nature.
That is correct.
And is that consistent with what you've repeatedly said in every single interview as well as here in trial?
That is correct.
Detective Farrell then pulls you out for an interview. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And it was Detective Farrell and Detective Byers. They put you in that room and they interview you. And at that point, did they advise you or let you know your Miranda rights, it's called, that you have a right to an attorney, you can have an attorney present?
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about maybe I should have attorney, maybe I shouldn't, correct?
Yes.
And they let you make a decision, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel at any point like you were coerced into talking to either of the detectives without an attorney?
No, ma'am.
Did you actually tell them that you wanted to talk to them?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it that you want? Why did you want to talk to them at that point? What's going on in your mind that you felt like you wanted to talk to them?
At that moment in time, I didn't want to play with them. If they flew all the way up and had me pulled over and brought in to have me answer questions, I didn't want to waste their time.
Okay. At that time, is it fair that, for lack of better words, are you freaking out? Are you stressed out?
Very much so.
Are you thinking about now your culpability, what you did, and your role?
Yes.
In this moment, when you've been arrested after 7 years of not hearing from any law enforcement, and you've been arrested and you've been told that you have a warrant for your arrest, are you thinking about everybody else involved, or are you thinking about yourself and your role at this time?
I'm only thinking about myself and my role at that point in time.
So when you testified with the detectives and you told them that you had stabbed.
Objection to word testifying.
That's correct.
That's fine. Sorry. When you interviewed with the detectives and you told them that you had stabbed the defendant, was that a way of getting something off your chest?
Yes.
Did you ever go in that conversation to the whole pre-planning conversation about how it all came together, or was this more of a confessional to your role?
It was a confessional to my role.
During that interview, though, you were asked about other individuals. correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were actually asked by the detectives some questions. So Monica, or the defendant, did come up in those interviews in Washington in October of 2024.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not like the topic of the defendant never came up, right?
Objection, this states the evidence, Your Honor, defendant never.
Stop. We've talked about this.
Sorry.
It would be overruled as to that. It is leading.
Okay, well, let me, page 54 of the interview, lines 14, starting at line 14. One second. Let me skip my page. The interview. One second. Oh, sorry, it's line page 52.
I'm sorry. Line what? I'm so sorry. Page what?
Let's start at line 5. Page 52. 52 of the interview in Washington. Detective Farrell asks you, how did you, when he said, we're gonna go rough her up, dude, how did he know when to go? Was he talking to her? And you said, I believe so. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Detective Farrell said, were you present when he was talking to her? There's no response at that point. Detective Farrell asked you, so what makes you believe that? You responded, he would tell me. Detective Farrell asked you, say what? Like what? You responded, she says she's in the house. And then you corrected it. She said he's in the house. Are you referring to the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Farrell said, okay. Detective Byers commented, that's obviously before. And you said yes. Detective Byers followed up with, and then at that point, it's go time from him. Like when he says, she says he's in the house. Like, okay, let's go, and you agreed, Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you did talk about the defendant's role in this plan to kill the defendant in Washington with the detectives.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, on page 66 of the interview, line 1, you brought up, I remember him saying she's gonna get some money. We're off, we're good. I was like, oh, okay, cool. There's some small talk and jumping down. Detective Byers asked you, did you ever get money? You said, I don't know. Or did he ever get money? I'm sorry, you said, I don't know. Then Detective Byers asks you, did you ever get any amount of money from this? And you responded, he gave me a couple of gold coins from his collection. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he ever tell you where those gold coins came from?
The detective?
Yes. I'm sorry, no, Baker.
Later he did. Yeah, he told me it came from the safe.
Page 95. And during this interview then, you were put back in the cell then, okay? So after you talked to them, you talked about Monica's, or the defendant's role in this, that she told Baker he's in the house now, so you knew when to go. They put you back in the cell then with the undercover agent, and at that point, did you feel free to start talking a little bit, no more, because now you had interviewed with the detectives?
A little bit, yeah.
And did you start talking to that agent some more?
Yes.
Did you tell him any of the things that you talked about in the interview?
Yes.
And this is the Perkins transcript page 122. Actually, we'll start on 121, line 19. When you were put back in the cell, the agent asked you, what did they say? And you said, I don't know. I asked for an attorney after I talked to the investigators. I'm honest with them, so. And the agent responded, so basically you told him the truth. You said, actually because of that woman. What woman were you referring to?
The defendant.
The agent then asked you, he said something, who the fuck is Monica? Is that the bitch? And you said, I think that's her name, yeah. So again, you brought up the defendant to this undercover agent, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then down on line 24, you told the agent, I was honest. And the agent said, to me, it sounded like the bitch is the one who planned this shit. I think defense actually asked you that question. And you agreed and you said, yeah, she did. And again, this is in Washington, the day that you're arrested.
Yes, ma'am.
The agent asked you, what was the fucking reason? And at that point in Washington, the day you're arrested, you told that undercover agent insurance money. And you also stated he was an abusive husband. So you did know about the insurance money, and you told the detectives about that even in Washington, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you stated that he was an abusive husband, is that what you were told by Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
The undercover agent then asked you how much insurance? And you stated, I wasn't going to get any of that, and I'm mad that I was even part of it. The agent followed up with, I'm gonna use his grammar, you wasn't gonna get any of it, what the fuck? You stated, I just didn't believe it until it hits to the thing. I just don't believe it. The agent asked you, did your uncle ever get any of the money? You stated, I don't think so. Then the agent responded, hold on, how long after did he go to jail? You stated a few months. The agent, he ain't get shit. You stated, yeah, they both got locked up. The agent then stated, so basically this bitch wanted y'all to come get the nigga so she can get insurance money. It must have been some millions. And you agreed and said, I think so. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You never said to this agent who's undercover, who you don't know is being recorded, no. She wasn't involved. You agreed with them.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that was the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
That was your belief,
Yes, ma'am.
that she was going to get this insurance money.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's what Baker had told you.
Yes, ma'am.
So after this interview then, I'm sorry, not interview, but you're in this cell, you're talking to the agent. And by the way, I think a reference was made to calling the defendant a bitch, or words to that effect. None of these detectives called her that kind of name to you, correct?
That is correct.
And certainly, I didn't call her anything like that, correct?
That is correct.
And you never referred to her as that.
No, ma'am.
That was stimulation coming, or words coming from the undercover agent who you were talking to, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So at some point then you asked, when you were in the cell with the agent, the detectives never came to you and said, the DA's here and wants to talk to you, right?
That is correct.
You asked because they mentioned that the DA was in Washington. It was you who asked to talk to me.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I came in to meet you, what did I advise you?
Of my Miranda rights.
And did I tell you that you have a right to consult with an attorney and you don't have to talk to me?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you actually think about it and say, yeah, I don't think I want to talk? And I walked away, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then did you decide later that you still wanted to talk to me?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do?
I asked to speak to the DA.
And I came back in, correct?
Yes,
At your
ma'am.
request.
Yes, ma'am.
Did I once again advise you that you had a right to an attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the defense asked you questions about you wanted a deal, you wanted to see your girls. It's true, you wanted to see your girls, right?
That is still true today.
And when you say girls, do you mean your wife and your daughter?
And grandma that we take care of.
Okay, she lived with you?
Yes.
So at that moment, you wanted to see your girls, you actually asked, can I see them, can I FaceTime them, can I talk to them? You asked all those questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at any time, did myself or the detectives, anybody ever offer you or suggest you're gonna get any deal at all, and we're talking about in Washington, to testify?
No. Quite the contrary. You actually couldn't even guarantee that I was going to be able to see my wife.
That's what you were told by me and the detectives, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you asked me, am I going to be charged? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And all these requests is after you'd already interviewed with the detectives and given your whole statement. This is kind of the tail end when the day's almost over, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you'd already talked to the detectives, you'd already given your statement, we're winding up, you asked to talk to me, and you wanted help seeing your girls, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you asked me, am I being charged, what did I tell you?
You said you are.
And when you asked me, am I gonna have to go to Los Angeles, what did I tell you?
You said yes.
Did I ever offer you anything?
No, ma'am.
Did I ever talk about plea deals with you?
No, ma'am.
Did I ever suggest you're gonna get leniency?
No, ma'am.
And did the detectives or myself ever bring up, we need you to testify against Monica and tell us all this stuff about Monica?
No, ma'am.
So when you came back to, one second. You went back then, once again, after this. You were put back in, again, you went back and forth a lot, but you were put back in again with the undercover agent. Do you remember that?
I do now. Yeah.
You went back and forth. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
But before you actually ended up speaking to me, did you talk to the agent about speaking to me? If you remember.
I believe I believe I did.
Okay.
Or did
One
I?
moment. One second. Get the right transcript. When you're put back in with the Perkins agent, or the undercover agent, once again, you talked to him once again about the defendant. And you said to him, this is 152 of the Perkins transcript, line 16. But I don't know if they have anything on her except for what he told me she said. Like, so I believe she set the whole thing up. The PA said, You said, that's what I believe. And the undercover agent, I use the word PA, Perkins agent, but it's undercover agent, said to you, but you said something about insurance money. And once again, you talked about insurance and you said, that's what it was mentioned, but I didn't really think about it. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
So contrary to the questions on cross-examination, you did talk about the defendant multiple times, both in the undercover operation and with the detectives in Washington, the day you were arrested, that you believe the defendant was involved in setting up the murder of her husband.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you also talk to them about the insurance money. That's the day you're arrested, about knowing that she was gonna collect insurance money. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, when you were put back in the cell with the undercover agent, I'm sorry, this is with when you interviewed with me, I'm sorry. I asked you, and this is page 152 of the interview, line 1. I asked you, did you think he just wanted to beat him up? And you said, that's what I was thinking. Well, that's not true though now, right?
No, that's not true.
That's what you were saying in the interview. And were you minimizing the whole planning and premeditation of this?
Yes.
And then I asked you, but then you knew about the insurance money, so how does that factor in? And you started to talk, and I talked over you, and I said, because you're not gonna get insurance. And I had not finished my sentence, and you said, I knew what I was told, whether it was true or not. And I said, okay. You started to say, I don't, and then I responded, so when did the conversation about the insurance money come in? And you said, maybe a few weeks before. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know you've been asked a lot of questions about when you knew about the insurance money. Before you flew to Los Angeles, had the topic of insurance money come up before in your conversations with Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
And that the defendant was to receive insurance money.
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, Baker had told you that some of that money would be payment to you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when the defense asked you about your financial situation at the time, did you have a lot of money? Did you need money?
I didn't have a lot of money.
But was this for the money?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you agree to commit the murder just for the money?
I did what Baker asked me to. Yeah. He said, I need you so we can get this money.
And Baker didn't stand to inherit insurance money.
No.
He told you the defendant was getting the insurance money.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, I have a few questions about some specific things. We talked a lot about the timing of things. Again, as you responded to the defense attorney, were you wearing a watch during any of your days in Los Angeles, January 22nd, 23rd?
No, ma'am.
Was the time, the actual physical time, whether it be 2 o'clock, noon, 3 o'clock, was any of that important to you?
No, ma'am.
Was anything scheduled for at 2 o'clock we will go here, at 3 o'clock we will go there?
No, ma'am.
Are you doing your best to recall the times that these things occurred now 7 years later, 8 years later?
Yes, ma'am.
The day that you came in on the 22nd and you went to, you flew in on the 22nd and then you ultimately ended up in that parking lot where the pho restaurant was, and you decided that you couldn't do it. You don't know what time you got there?
Not really. It was dark.
It was dark. Now, on the way there, do you remember anything from the apartment, leaving the apartment, to going to that location? Do you remember what you did in between the apartment and the location?
Sat in the front seat and rode.
Okay. Did you stop anywhere? Did you stop at a Ralph's?
I don't remember. I remember pulling up in the back of the strip mall.
Do you remember any stops on the way to whether it be to get money, to go to a Ralph's, to get Starbucks, anything? Do you remember anything?
No.
Do you know how much time from when you left Baker's apartment until you went to that area? Do you know how much time passed?
No.
Okay. Could it have been anywhere? I mean, if you don't remember, you don't remember if it's hours or minutes?
I mean, it was minutes. It wasn't that far of a ride, but I don't know how long.
Now, where was Baker before you decided to go to this location?
I think he was in the apartment with me.
Do you know for sure?
No.
Okay, so is it fair you don't know where Baker was before you took that trip to the location where you had planned on the 22nd to stab Fabio?
Where the plan was?
I'm saying you don't know where Baker was earlier that day.
No.
Okay. And on a side note, the term Baker referred to the victim, Fabio, as motherfucker, that wasn't your term, right?
No.
You weren't calling Fabio motherfucker, that was Baker calling him motherfucker.
That is correct.
Okay. As far as those three-way calls that you had with Birdsong and Baker, the month December and the months October, November, December, those months previous, you never said with certainty that Monica was on any of those calls, right?
Right.
So your testimony is you know Baker was on it, you know Birdsong was on it, you don't know if anybody else was on the call. Is that your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
And then also a lot of questions on this Vegas meeting, or not meeting, I should say. When you went to Vegas in July of 2016, you do not know, is this your testimony today, if you met the defendant there or not?
That is correct.
Now, do you agree that multiple times you said you don't believe you met her until you came to Los Angeles from that Las Vegas trip and went to the gym that day, July 2016, met her at the gym and went back to her house? That's what you believe is the first time you met her.
Yes.
Now, you've been asked, could you have met her in Vegas? Did you meet her in Vegas? When you're saying I might have, why are you saying I might have?
Vegas is a lot, and Baker introduced me to a lot of people at any given moment in time.
So you don't know, but you can't say one way or the other. It's possible, but you have no recollection of having met her before when you saw her at LA Fitness in July of 2016. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. When you were picked up from the airport on the 22nd, you testified with the defense counsel that you think you were in the Verson Nisa, but you're not sure, right? When you were picked up from the airport.
Yes.
Did you know Rob to rent cars?
Yes.
How often did he rent cars? That you know?
Well, anytime one of his other ones wasn't either. I remember one wasn't registered and one wasn't working, and he still needed to get around, so he would go get a rental for a few hours. So it wasn't uncommon that he wouldn't go grab one and then drop it off later that day.
When you went to Vegas in 2016, did you rent a car then?
No.
Did you ever go anywhere with Rob other than on any other trips where he rented a car?
Just in LA.
Okay, so it wasn't unusual that Baker had rental cars.
No, it was not.
You do know that that Nissan Versa is the car that you were driving when you got stopped by the police for the seatbelt ticket, though. You know that you were in the Versa then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Couple more questions. Just when you got to the house the day that you were going to actually go through with the stabbing of Fabio, and this is on the 23rd, did Rob tell you where or how he knew where Fabio, the victim, would be?
Yeah, he told me that she left him home alone. We have to go now. I remember slightly hesitating. He was like, put this on. And it was never really a threat with him. It was always just a certain look. I was like, all right. And I just did it. And then as we jogged up the hill and we got closer to the door, he turned back and looked at me and said he should be on the patio.
Did he say how he knew that he should be on the patio?
He told me that before we left, he said that she left him home alone and he should be on the patio.
Okay.
He reminded me of that.
And in your proffer statement that you did with the prosecution and the detectives, do you recall telling the people, us in the room then, that he told you that she said he was on the patio?
Yes.
And then again, was there a plan? I know, briefly going over this, the plan to take the car. I asked you about the keys the other day. Did he ever say anything to you about the keys?
He said he said she's gonna leave the keys somewhere where he can find them.
That she is going to leave the keys somewhere?
Yes.
Your Honor.
It's overruled.
And in your proffer on day 2, did you tell, again, the detectives and the prosecution that same statement back in November of 2024 that Baker told you that she was going to leave the keys out?
Yes.
Exhibit 247 was the agreement between the people and Christopher Austin that's already been entered in. Remember, we talked to you about this yesterday, that agreement that you signed. Stating that kind of the terms of the agreement is to tell the truth. If you don't tell the truth and the court decides you haven't been truthful in your testimony and upheld your end of the bargain, the deal is off, basically. The deal could be off. You understood that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this paragraph here on page 3, Christopher Austin understands that he is under no obligation to make any particular statement or to testify in conformity with any prior statements he may have made. Christopher Austin further understands that his only obligation in this entire matter is to be completely honest and truthful. Have you abided by this?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means that whatever you've said before, we're not asking you, did you understand this to mean that we're not saying, no one's saying you have to testify how you stated before. It's in here right now that matters.
Yes, ma'am.
And have you told the truth, the best that you recall?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, you pled then, if I may mark the plea transcript, it is 10 pages in length, plea transcript for Christopher Austin dated January 17th, 2025.
That's 254?
254. Is that right? And in that plea transcript, page 2, in this courtroom, and that's Ms. Silverman talking, the defendant will be entering a plea to count 1 as a second-degree murder. He will be admitting to the personal use of a knife pursuant to Penal Code Section 12022B1, and the people would ask that sentencing be put over until after the jury trial. Do you understand that to mean that after you testify and after it's determined that you testified truthfully, then you would be sentenced to the agreed upon terms? Did you
Yes,
understand
ma'am.
that?
Yes, ma'am.
And furthermore, Ms. Silverman advised you, and the other thing that I want to put on the record is that when the defendant testifies at trial, this plea agreement is contingent upon his truthful and complete testimony at trial. However, it is not the people or the district attorney's office who are the arbiters of whether or not he testifies truthfully. It is the court. And I want to make sure that he understands that. And so he's not being asked to testify in a way that he thinks that the district attorney would want, but that he testifies truthfully and that the decision is ultimately in the discretion of this court. She asked you, do you understand what was said, Mr. Austin? You said, yes, sir. The court asked you that, I'm sorry. And the court asked you, is this agreeable to you? And you said, yes. Did you understand this at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you abided by this in court and testified truthfully, not what anything you think the DA wants to hear?
Yes, ma'am.
By the way, you will be sentenced if you get the agreement to 16 years to life in prison, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that 16 to life means you have no end date right now? Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna object, Your Honor. This is irrelevant at this point.
Yes, but based on your cross-examination, not getting home to his girls, it's overruled.
So that means after you serve 16 years, that's your first opportunity to go in front of a parole board. And it's up to them to determine if you get out. They might say yes, they might say no, right? You don't know.
That is correct.
So when the defense attorney asked you about getting a deal, do you think this is a deal?
No. I mean, yes. No. I don't know. I'm not going home. I'm not going to get to work with my youth anymore.
So no one ever told you if you plead, you're going home to see your girls, right?
That is correct.
And
No.
what you testified today has been the truth?
That's yes, ma'am.
And yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me ask you, would you have committed this murder, killing of Fabio Sementilli, if you didn't think that the defendant, his wife, wanted this?
Objection, that's speculation.
Sustained.
No more questions.
Anything on repress?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Mr. Austin,
Yes, sir.
you know Mr. Baker was sentenced to life without parole.
I was informed.
And that's what you were facing before you made this, we'll be generous and call it plea agreement, not deal.
Objection assumes facts, not in evidence.
It's overruled.
Your Honor, he wasn't charged with this.
I'm sorry, I'm not listening to you. You don't understand on this.
Well, I would object to a legal conclusion.
So the complaint was murder with special circumstances.
No.
I stand corrected. Sustained.
Mr. Austin, if you don't testify the way the prosecution wants you to testify, well, let me go back. You got this deal or offer only after your proffer with your attorney, right? I think he's here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you knew the deal was based on what you said at the proffer, correct?
To say I knew, I don't think that's fair.
Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's fair. To say I knew. I didn't know
Your
anything.
attorney did not inform you what the reason was for the proffer?
He did inform me that what a proffer was. He did inform me that in going into the proffer, I have to tell the whole entire truth of everything that I know to the best of my ability.
In other
And I
words,
did that.
confessing to the murder, right?
Yes.
Well, why would you just confess to the murder if you're facing life imprisonment?
I was unaware of that. I was actually facing life in prison.
Your attorney didn't tell you what you were facing when you were charged with first-degree murder at the use of a knife? He didn't tell you what the penalty was?
Correct.
Object that misstates or assumes facts, not in evidence.
Sustained.
Did he tell you what you were facing? What penalty?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
He gave me a list of 3 to 4 potentials that the state of California could charge me with. So to say I knew what I was facing entirely, no, I did not. But I knew it was going to be a very high number.
Worse than 16 years to life, right?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, why go through and make the deal? Right?
Right.
You had to gain something from the deal, right?
Correct.
And you knew what you had said to the officer, to the DA, and the Perkins individual down up in Vancouver wasn't good enough for the deal, for you to get your deal, right?
Again, I don't think it's fair to say that I knew what was good enough.
You didn't know that the one thing that was missing from your statement in Vancouver was connecting Monica Sementilli to the crime?
They interviewed me a few questions, but I withheld information.
Pardon?
I withheld information until I got an attorney present.
What information did you withhold?
Objection.
You went through this, counsel. Stay.
When you were put in the Perkins cell, I'll call it the Perkins cell, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Who's the first person who brought up the bitch or Monica or anyone of that nature, meaning Baker's girlfriend, who you now say was involved with this? Who brought that up first? Do you remember that?
The detective brought it up to me, and the individual, the young man, if you will, started asking me questions about it, and I brought it up to him.
What young man?
The young man in the cell.
Oh, right, okay. You remember him saying, "That's fixed to go to trial. That's why you here, because the bitch is fixed to go up for trial and try to make shit better for herself, threw you under the bus." Remember that?
He said that.
He brought up a bitch or someone throwing you under the bus, not you. Right?
That I brought it up. He
How-
brought it up.
How did
He
you
brought
bring
it
it? Who brought it up first?
up. The detective?
The detective? Before you were put into the cell?
No one brought up anything before I was put into the cell.
So what do you mean by the detective? The Perkins individual?
No, the detective that came to see me and showed me pictures.
And when was that in relation to when you were arrested?
When he came, opened the door and showed me the pictures. I think if I remember correctly, the first time I didn't really want to talk to anybody.
Okay, let me get this straight, if we could, time-wise. You are arrested in Vancouver, Washington, correct?
Yes, sir.
What day are you arrested?
Objection cumulative.
This is not something we...
I understand that. You're trying to find out when the detective
Yes.
appeared. Okay, there's been testimony, I'll allow you to inquire, but there's been testimony the detective appeared at the cell in the presence of the Perkins agent.
Okay. You've heard what His Honor just said?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It better be.
Yes, sir.
So, the first person to bring up that there was another person involved besides you and Baker was the detective, right?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say, as best you recall?
He said, man, I don't want to misquote that, man. That's not fair.
Well, he basically said, the reason you're here is that, he didn't call her a bitch, I'm sure, is that someone else is involved, Baker's girlfriend or something like that, and we got to find out who it is.
Objection states the testimony.
So ruled.
Isn't that the gist of what he told you?
Well, objection assumes facts, not evidence.
It's overruled.
He let me know that she knew we were all involved in some way, shape, or form.
She let you know that
He let me know
He let you know that, what?
that we were all involved in some way, shape, or form.
Who did he mean? Did you ask him who he meant by we?
Didn't have to. He said names.
What did he say?
He said Baker and the defendant.
He
And
called
you.
her the defendant?
No, sir. He called
What
her
did he
Monica.
say?
He said Monica.
So he came to you and said, we already know that who's involved, and it's you and Baker and Monica, correct?
I don't want to misquote him, so yes.
Something like that.
Something in that form.
He informed you why you were there.
Yes, sir.
And then the Perkins guy said, man, that bitch done sold you out. Did she sell you out as far as you know? You know what sell out means?
It's form sustained.
What did you take it when he said, that bitch done sold you out, now this is your turn? Words to that effect.
I didn't take it as anything because I knew why I was there.
You knew why you were there from the moment the detective said, we know what happened, and it involved Monica, you, and Baker, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then he leaves you alone with the Perkins guy, right?
That is correct.
And you tell did you lie to the Perkins guy?
Yeah.
What'd you lie about?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustained.
Well, why would you lie to the Perkins guy if the detective just told you that the 3 people were involved and you knew he was right?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustained.
And you told the Perkins guy, because he kept saying to you, that bitch did it for the insurance, she did it for the insurance, you gotta come clean, you gotta help yourself. I mean, we went through all those things yesterday, remember?
Objection states the testimony.
It's overruled.
All that stuff about you gotta make a deal, and you saying I'll do whatever I have to, and him saying you better make a deal, go after the bitch, and you saying I'll do what I have to. Remember all that from yesterday?
Yes, sir.
And then he asked you, so when did you find out the bitch did it for the insurance? Remember what you said?
No.
The day of the incident,
Oh, yeah.
right?
The day it happened.
The day it happened.
I remember what I told him now.
I'm sorry, what?
I remember what I told him now. My apologies.
Okay. Was that the truth?
No, it was not.
Well, why did you lie to him?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustained.
And then, the other thing you said to the Perkins people and to the detective and to the officers here, when you knew what they wanted and you knew what it would take to get you out, you said the only reason we went up there to begin with was to rough him up. Remember that?
Objection, cumulative.
Sustained. Take our adjournment this time. We will not be in session this afternoon. You're free to do whatever you choose. We will next be in session tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The admin advises you not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else or form express any opinions of the cause finally submitted to you. Have a good evening.